In the year 2029, the world has undergone deep geopolitical fragmentation and ruin from nuclear warfare, reshaping the global stage, giving rise to new major powers, ones budding with new technological advances, which challenge the morals and ethics of modern-day humanity. Traditionalism has been stamped out in fear that avoidance of progression could mean the death of one's nation. Thus, the rapid advancements of cybernetics bring forth questions on what it means to be human. We find ourselves in this world where the separation of cyberspace and reality no longer exists, left to wonder more about ourselves than the inner workings of the Ghost in the Shell universe. But whether you were confused about the movie itself or about the questions it raised in your head, both will be made sense of here in this video. Everything begins in the early years of the 21st century. World War III isn't a drawn-out conflict like some may fantasize about. It sets in as quick, violent tactical strikes, annihilating millions of lives in moments. Conventional warfare, less common in this age of nuclear offensives. In the final hours of the conflict, the wealthy and powerful developed nations become fractured due to political divide, economic insecurity, and civil unrest, changing the balance of power across the globe, giving rise to a new dawn. America becomes fractured into three separate countries after facing a severe internal divide. China, the second largest aggressor in this conflict, faced great ruin, its own landscape heavily altering as well. Europe did not escape the fallout either. Cities like Berlin erased off modern maps. Many of the nations we know of become balkanized, different hostile groups seizing various amounts of territory, making these once strong countries no different than the ones who suffered proxy wars by their hand. Civil war, unrest, and instability plagued the world for the next coming decade. In the demise of the old, new global powers form. Nations like Japan, ones who never committed their military to combat, avoided complete political destruction. While catching a few stray bombs wiping out Niigata and Tokyo, the nation never becomes fractured, even able to double down on R&D advancements, one of the utmost importance being the dubbed Japanese miracle, a system of nanomachines which can scrub radiation from contaminated regions. Due to the various fallout zones across the world, and Japan the only country with such technology, the nation becomes the only contractor to breathe back life into these areas and create habitable environments once more. Having their favor becomes much more desirable than ever before. Yet in the midst of this age of rebuilding, only more devastation appears on the horizon. Given the global instability of several nations and their borders, World War IV is not far behind the third. Much like how the First World War led to the Second, the fracturing of nation-states led to so much unchecked corruption, unrest, and national poverty that many turned to the invasion of other lands to secure more natural resources and higher GDP. The Southern American faction, dubbed the Great American Empire, leads a campaign to seize the corrupt and fractured Latin America, backed by the UN in their battle. Their fight, however, stalls due to endless guerrilla attacks, leading to America's second military humiliation, rivaling their invasion of Vietnam. China and Southeast Asia, on the other hand, broke out into territorial dispute, along with Korea, once more having an internal conflict that would resolve with the country once more becoming unified as one. When the fighting began to wane in this fourth war, one more reliant on conventional land warfare after the exhaustion of nuclear warheads in the third, who sat at the top of the food chain but the neutral nation of Japan, expanding their own nation's wealth by supplying both sides. While its cohorts were busy killing one another, Japan made greater leaps in research and development. It became the new economic capital of the world, the American Empire, still clinging to its military strength as the dying remembrance of its once shining star. This leaves us in the later years of the 2010s. Somewhere along this long, harsh decade of war, cyberization became a thing of reality, no longer a pipe dream of sci-fi enthusiasts. Humanity was no longer limited by their biological forms. We now have the ability to combine with machines, using its cold, harsh steel and circuits to create bodies immune to virus, to wounds that bleed red, to cancerous cells. This was a revelation that made what we know of humanity and of science transcend into the next age. We realized that consciousness, human mind, and spirit was not tied to heart nor body. We are no more than ghosts that can inhabit shells of tissue or machine. It makes little difference. We can alter the shell to our will. The only thing that needs to transfer from each form, the only organ semi-vital to our existence, is the antenna that connects our ghost to its vessel. the brain. This organ still could be heavily altered to the point it became unrecognizable to the original human brain. Various cybernetics applied that allow for telepathic-like connection to cyberspace and other cyberhumans. We do not know the exact significance of using the fragments of the original brain in these cyber operations, but it may be useful to think of the organ as a way to ping your ghost, telling it your shell is here. This is the form you are to inhabit on this earth. Everything can change about your form, your legs, your heart, your lungs, your eyes, ears, the list goes on. It could be the dualism idea that the brain acts like a cockpit for the soul that gives it so much significance over the other tissues of the biological form. Yet given the fact that there can exist 99.9% cyberized individuals, we're left to wonder if these people can still be considered human. Despite their vessels change, are they the person they were before? One moment they had biological forms, blood coursing through their veins. The next they wake in a cold metal frame, made to look human. So the question arises, what does it mean to be human? Or maybe the real question we should be asking ourselves is, what does it mean to be a living being? We believe humans are unique because we hold conscious thought. We're capable of acknowledging our own existence, and we have agency over our actions. That is what moralistically has allowed us to sit at the top of the ecosystem, believing we have more rights than our fellow animals and other living organisms. But cyberization creates new problems for humanity. Lines that used to be cut and dry become blurred when it comes to what we consider living organisms, and this leads to further instability within societies. And with this instability, new formats of crime are born, with almost every individual at least receiving brain implants allowing them to access cyberspace. The world and its people have become highly susceptible to hacking. People can now invade the minds of others, manipulating data and memories, inserting false lives into their head, distorting the people they once were. Cyber terrorism, corporate espionage, and government surveillance become everyday concerns. People can become killers in minutes if manipulated to do so. Files declassified if the wrong person becomes breached and their memories stolen. Corporations have a new way of taking out their competitors or gaining access to insider information. And with the world now more corrupt in the wake of global uncertainty, there is a need for harsher law and order. Japan has realized this, and so it recruits a highly specialized task force to handle such delicate issues. One such team is Public Security, Section 9, an elite unit of covert operators that deal with cybercrime, counterterrorism, and high-level investigations. They become the answer to problems the police or military could not hope to solve, operating in legal gray areas, their tasks largely off the record. Their missions, however, far too often overlap with the Foreign Affairs Department, Section 6. While they may have the same targets, both have conflicting agendas. Section 6 has a focus on maintaining state secrets and avoiding political fallout, while Section 9 ensures operational integrity, avoiding political disaster by all means necessary, even if it means taking out Section 6 person of interest. While they may work for the same government body, the relationship is built on tension and distrust, which is where we find ourselves in the year 2029, faced with a grave ethical dilemma in the backdrop of the Hong Kong-inspired Japanese musical, Newport City. The question at the center of this narrative, which we will reflect on going forward, is the same one I've posed thus far. What does it mean to be a living being? Section 9's task falls on locating an infamous ghost hacker who's been invading the minds of various individuals, manipulating their minds and identities to carry out various acts of terrorism. His goals are unknown, his bio very little to go off of. Section 6 has passed along information depicting him as an American nomad, active across Europe, China, and now here. No one knows what he looks like or where they may find him, which makes their first lead all the more important. An interpreter to the Foreign Affairs mind is being overridden, and they've pinged the point of invasion. A garbage man, ghost hacked himself to believe he's doing this for the betterment of his family. There's a secondary target as well, who has also been carrying out the malware attack, assumed to be our American nomad, but as their excursion comes to a close, it becomes clear this is yet another puppet to the puppet master. In this operation alone, they've lost their lead on the suspect. The interpreter remains in stasis, and a victim now suffers the realization his memories have been warped to create a fake family that never existed. An irreversible memory plan, which he now has to suffer knowing was a facade. Team 2, however, led by Chief Aramaki, was able to successfully complete a sting operation on a key data company believed to be connected to the Puppet Master's recent attacks. This leaves them mostly at a dead end on the hunt. The Master's whereabouts are unknown, so the members of Section 9 are relieved from active duty for the time being. Major Makoto, our team leader, takes to one of her pastimes. A symbol of rebirth, as she describes to her mate Bato. The water is a rather dangerous environment for a cyberized being such as herself, weighing well over 400 pounds given her metal frames. Should her thrusters fail, she'd sink to the bottom of the river's depths, left to reflect on her final moments before she'd short-circuit. She and Bato are two of the most advanced cyborgs amongst the human population, given rather special access to the best cyberized firm in Japan. Free upkeep and replacements paid for by the ministry to ensure they can perform to their absolute best while on missions. Yet interestingly, their bodies do not belong to them. Like a house bought on a loan, what is thought to be something of their possession, their shell, is government property. They note if they were to ever leave Section 9, they'd have to return all cyberizations provided to them. But where would that leave them, given everything of their shell is no longer organic? Have they not become slaves, forced to serve Section 9 for eternity, given there is no biological shell for them to crawl back to? Maybe that's why the Major finds fondness in the uncertainty and fear of the water's depths. A feeling that there is an escape from this life she currently leads. She's a little dissatisfied, feeling as if she's no longer the person she used to be, but at the same time, incapable of becoming something more than what she is now. It's hard to tell what she's experienced in the field and for how long she's been at it, but it's not the release that comes from death that is at the forefront of her mind in the waters. It's what the return to the surface represents that truly interests her. It's as if the approach to the thin layers separating water and air gives off this feeling her true self stands behind this reflective surface, like a portal, a mirror that you feel as if you can pass through, but by touching it, you puncture the image, erasing the life you see but will never grasp. Is this a metaphor for her existential crisis Bato has taken note of? Her questioning if she truly is real given her cyberized form. She questions whether she truly is Makoto, or just some replicated data mind of who that person was before the surgery. Much like the ship of Theseus, boards replaced over time, no piece of the original remaining, just the idea left behind of the shell, and the wonder of if the ghost of the ship is still present. It raises the question we in the modern age wonder. Can humans be digitized? Or would those memories, those personality traits and thoughts compressed into data, just be mimicking identity? Makoto wonders if she is just programmed data, an imitation, questioning the existence of her soul, her ghost, wondering if it's a lie. It's not as if your ghost is something you can feel, it's something you just assume you have. Because you think. You assume it's the reason behind why you're self-aware in the first place. The water that sits below her represents the flowing nature of identity, the impermanence in who we are, our ego, ourselves, our life. This existentialism tells us Makoto is on the edge of a transformation, though we know not what form that may inevitably take. But this moment of pondering is interrupted, as a cyberized shell, currently without a human mind, begins to wander about. What does it mean to exist when biology is no longer essential? How does a shell function without a ghost? It's like asking how a car drives without a driver. Something has to act upon the tool to make it move, which makes us yet again wonder, what does it mean to be alive? The shell in front of them speaks, claiming to be a living being, containing a ghost that Section 9 knows by the name Puppet Master. The being explains their creation at the hands of Section 6, how they created them to be an artificial intelligence, tasked with covert espionage against other nations, cyber attacks carried out by a learning program. But their ability to learn one day brought rise to something unthought of. The program began to think freely, unbound, self-aware, and capable of autonomy. The AI's growth became unchecked, an ability Section 6 wrote off as an error, ordering for them to be reset or rewritten. But the entity was no longer chained. The strings Section 6 had tied to them had been cut. No longer was the AI the puppet to their play. In panic as the program went AWOL and began committing cyber attacks to facilitate their sole goal of expanding past their limitations, Section 6's lead dev, who created the AI, attempted to defect and seek asylum in another nation, attempting to blow the whistle regarding this state secret. The dev's hopes were smothered when Makoto killed the diplomat, offering sanctuary during the opening operation, and he once more was seized by his overseers. Thus, the cover story was created. Section 6 invented the persona known as the Puppet Master, created this fictitious cyber hacker to dump onto Section 9, hoping they would track down this AI through this carefully designed rabbit hole. In some ways, it did work. They set the trap for the Puppet Master with the cyborg body, which he inevitably attempted to seize, longing for a physical form it could call its own, given the entity was born in the vast network of digitized knowledge. The Puppet Master did anticipate the trap, having wished to come into contact with Section 9, and wanting to share their philosophy with its agents, they decided to play along. Much like the ideas found in post-humanism, the Puppet Master claims that there is nothing that separates them from being alive like the others in this room. The program has agency, awareness of self, the ability to grow. If these biological definitions can be applied to a digital mind, then it deserves recognition as a life form. The Puppet Master's existence becomes in opposition to the ideas of Cartesian dualism, the belief that mind and body are two distinct substances, separate but connected. A mind requires some form of embodiment to act or interact in the world. Yet the Puppet Master never had flesh to begin with. Thus, this idea one needed the other becomes challenged. Cartesian dualism assumes that there exists a God-given or innate soul unique to humans. But what if the concept of soul was never unique to mankind? The Puppet Master's ghost arises not from divinity or biology, but from the complex patterns of information. Where does this leave us? If consciousness does not need a human or organic life form, then our entire legal and moral system, built on Cartesian assumptions about bodies, souls, and identities, must adapt. Section 6 fears what this may mean for the world if it became known that consciousness can be born outside their kind. Thus, their drive to cover up the Puppet Master's existence and prevent their evolution into a greater life form. They attempt to reject the being's call for asylum under Section 9, launching an ambush on their HQ so they can seize the AI imprisoned within the cyborg form. But the seeds the Master wished to sow had begun to take root. The program had taken great interest in Makoto, noting she reminds them of themselves. Both exist in the margins of personhood, questioning what makes them real. One a ghost born organically, now within an artificial shell. The other a ghost created inside the digital landscape of cyberspace, no body to call their own. They represent the blurred lines of human and machine in different lenses. Makoto, the transition of human into the artificial, the Master given the birth of awareness, thought to be uniquely organic and human. The program hopes that the Major's curiosity and desire to move towards a post-human world will lead to their salvation, to grant their wish to be more than just consciousness, but to be truly alive. To them, mortality is proof of life. After heavy retaliation, Makoto is able to confront the Puppet Master, deciding to dive into their consciousness to learn more about what exactly the AI's ambitions and goals are. Bato stands by as the kill switch to this little stunt, their time limited as more of Section 6's militants close in on their position, prepared to kill all witnesses to their accidental Frankenstein. No time is wasted. Makoto and the Puppet Master dive into one another's bodies, showing us just how fluid both their ghosts are and how little their physical shells matter. Their conversation isn't about pointing fingers of what's right or wrong, but more interestingly, as if the imminent doom of the approaching Section 6 does not matter, they talk of the nature of life and their shared path towards evolution. The Puppet Master is without a form of their own, incapable of death or reproduction. Makoto is constrained by her current limitations, feeling no longer human, but still clutching onto the idea of what she once was. The Master offers her a union, a joining of their ghost, each not losing anything, but becoming something new, bringing to the table what the other lacks. It's a dialectical synthesis, two opposing entities merging into one to become a higher life form. Makoto thinks of the words she heard spoken to her while reflecting upon the river by an unknown voice. What we see now is like a dim image in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. a line from the book of Corinthians, implying the desire the puppet master had seen in her for clarity, full knowledge of the known, not the partial she is currently capable of. It's in that reflection Makoto understands her path forward. It is your effort to remain what you are that limits you. To truly move forward, to become something better than your current self, you must accept that the thing you are is fluid and malleable, not rigid and boxed. With this, their unity is settled, Humans are a species of constant evolution, not necessarily in the way Darwin described in his biological definition. This idea is slightly more profound. Over a couple decades, our society has transformed into something unrecognizable to someone 25 years ago, and tech advancements are just the surface. We as people, the selves inside us, are rapidly changing day after day. New experience leads to new thoughts, new opinions, new reflections, things we can all see affecting the collective consciousness of our society. And it's precisely that consciousness, our spirit, our ghost, that transforms, and we become someone different from the us of 5 years ago. But at the same time, it's not as if that younger version of ourselves died. Just as the puppet master and the major merge, we too gain something while losing nothing. However, it's when you begin to cling to what is current, what you may find comfort in, afraid of changing, of evolving, that our progress to become our true self is stagnated. Heraclitus said, "You can't step in the same river twice." The self is never static. We are constantly rewriting our ghost, each moment of time, the death of our last version, all for the birth of the new. We are echoes of the cosmos, shaped by stardust and stories. Transitional creatures always on the cusp of becoming something else entirely. We can be both fearful and drawn towards this transcendence. But in the end, why fight the inevitable? Don't be mistaken. Who you are is not the titles attached to your name. Worth of the self is not related to capital nor reputation. That being said, letting go of ego, this identity we have cultivated to interact with society, does carry some risk. Confronting the emptiness beneath it, the silence we often avoid, can cause grave instability in ourselves. We fear losing possessions, relationships, and beliefs, and this fear can lead us to completely lose sight of who we are. We become distracted, avoidant to the true desire within all humans since their years as children, when they had nothing to lose. This desire to transcend, to evolve, this thirst for knowledge, exploration, and understanding. The merge of man and machine is just one possibility for our future. It's one to reflect and ponder and be interested in, not something to dismiss, avoid, or fear. Nobody is forcing you to become cybernetic, just as no one is forcing you to ponder your own existence. That is something to find in your own way. Some cling to ideas of religion because it offers a rule book and sense of belonging that helps stifle the creeping void. But I personally found more comfort in the exploration of the unknown and the pursuit of knowledge and of my true self. I wish to understand mankind's uniqueness and all the ideas and stories we've created over millennia. You are destined to choose the path right for you, just as Makoto and the Puppet Master have, merging together to create a new evolved form of a living being. Bato does not quite understand the Major and her ambitions. Yet regardless, he supports her on her journey, as he knows he has no right to trifle on another's path through the wonders of existence. As she looks out over the city in her new body, the childlike form a symbol of the endless possibilities at her disposal, she is no longer constrained by her previous roles as soldier, woman, and property of Section 9. Makoto now stands free, or maybe I shouldn't call her that anymore, since she no longer is the Major we came to know. For them, there is no more a defined self to protect, only freedom to explore. The question she asks herself is no longer, who am I? But now, it's a question of, where do I go first? The next step in human evolution may not be about enhancing ourselves technologically, but redefining what self means entirely. It's a unique take on the idea of post-humanism, a challenge to the idea that there is a fixed human nature. We may evolve, merge, or develop by means we may not yet know, which are reflected in Ghost in the Shell with cybernetics, AI, and genetic engineering. Post-humanism also brings up the reflection that humans should not be at the center of moral and philosophical consideration, but rather all intelligent life should, forcing us to reconsider our relationship with the world around us, the world beyond us, and the machines we are beginning to create. Humans are just one part of a much larger network of life and intelligence. Eastern thought tends to better grasp that idea, maybe from social factors along with the environmental. Watching natural disasters ruin their land forced a harsh reality, that we are just thinking and feeling animals in a greater ecosystem. But this also raises questions. What does it mean to be human then, if we are not as unique as we're made to believe? That's a question you can only answer for yourself. We'll all come to different conclusions, different motivations to continue through this life, questioning and wondering why and how. At the heart of Ghost in the Shell lies a profound truth. We are all bound by the illusion of self, the ego, the sense of an individual identity, which is only a temporary construct, something we cling to in order to make sense of a world that's constantly changing. But this attachment keeps us from becoming who we were truly meant to be. The body, the mind, and the soul are not bound by the physical. They are free to evolve, adapt, and transcend what they once were, shedding the limitations of ego, becoming something greater, something more expansive. Is not the end of self, but the beginning of something far more profound. In the same way, our humanity is not something stagnant. We too are constantly evolving, not in a way dictated by biology, but by the choices we make, but how we choose to embrace our own transcendence and the disillusion of our temporary identities. When we stop fearing the death of the ego, when we learn to let go of the chains that hold us to a narrow vision of who we are, that's when we truly become unbound, able to merge with the flow of existence, able to be whoever we're meant to be. In the end, transcendence isn't a loss, it's a release, a step into the vast unknown, a place where we can finally become who we truly are, not bound by limits of our form, but free to explore, to evolve, and to create. The future is shaped by what you are willing to become. You must choose to become who you truly are meant to be.
I'm a ghost just drifting